Good evening, everyone. So, of course, I hope that all of you will stay around after dessert and after the prize to continue to visit. But it is 7:30, and we are joined by an audience online from Taiwan and other places in the world, and I want to make sure, because they're not getting food, that we stay on time. So my name is Jonathan Stalling, and I'm the Harold J. and Ruth Newman Chair for U.S.-China Issues here at the University of Oklahoma. And while my Dean Scott Fritzen will be introducing everyone in a more formal manner here in a moment, I want to just begin by talking a little bit about the prize and a little bit about this year's winner. But I do welcome you, and I'm very glad to see many faces that I know, many that I don't know, and to celebrate the work of Wei-Xing Zhang this evening. So the Newman Prize for Chinese Literature is conferred every 2 years. And to do that, we bring together an excellent jury of academics, China scholars, Chinese literature scholars specifically, and translators as well, who will, usually 5 from most different continents. And we think about, when we compose the jury, where the people are coming from, the kinds of literature that they study, the works that they translate. Right? Of course, gender and other things are all a part of this to get the most rich possible representation of the Sinophone world of literature. Sinophone I'm going to come back to and talk about in a moment, because it's particularly important for this evening, and so I'll do that in a moment. But I want to let you know how competitive it is, and so I'm going to mention a little bit about the other nominees. So this year, Dorothy Tse was nominated by Francis Waitman at Leeds University in the UK. Zhou Kai was nominated by Oning, who's at Columbia University. Yu Hua was nominated by Sabina Knight at Smith College, and Bi Feiyu was nominated by He Ping at Nanjing Normal University, or Nanshida. And so as you can see from those, for those of you who are familiar with Chinese literature, you kind of know these are really different scholars, and they work on different aspects of the Sinophone world. The prize is conferred to one every 2 years in recognition of the outstanding achievements in prose and poetry that best captures the human condition, and is conferred solely on the basis of literary merit. The idea of creating this prize was, there are many ideas actually, but one of the core notions here is that it was important for Chinese literature to have advocacy outside the Sinosphere. Again, I'll come back to that term. That is to say, we need to have a place to bring forth the best and the most interesting and the most diverse voices in Chinese language literature. And so the prize is meant to do that. 2, it's also meant to help the Institute for U.S.-China Issues work on difficult topics. And so Bo Kang, where are you? There you are, good. Will come up after Dean Fritzen and talk a little bit about our institute. But it works on the tough topics, economics, politics, security, and so on. But in order to take on the tough topics of U.S.-China relations, it's also important to have a good faith dialogue, which means engaging the life force of human beings, right? Connecting at the level of the gut, and the heart, and mind, right? This is about sharing grief and joy and understanding, which doesn't come from even learning. It comes from proximity and a slow maturation of relation. So building relationality is not easy, and it's not cheap. And in the absence of relationality, we rely on heuristics, oversimplifications with terrible consequences. So when things are serious, relations deepen. Do you think I'm telling the truth? Alas, I'm not, right? When things get serious, relations don't deepen. We become thin, and we make terrible decisions that affect millions of people. And so it's very important as we come to the inflection point that we're in currently in geopolitics to remember that reading literature is vital, because literature is resilient proximity, connects us directly to the human condition. And so that is the purpose of this prize. And Harold Newman, who I'll speak about later, and Joellen, it's so good to see you here, worked with our original director, Peter Gries, to come up with this idea, and I've been working with them since the beginning. And Zhu Ping, where are you at? Over here, and others, and so many of my colleagues work very hard every 2 years to make this possible. But I do want to point out, before I get going and talking about this year's winner, to draw some attention to Stephanie, right here, in the blue, caught halfway chewing her bite. But Stephanie, please thank her. I don't know if you guys have thrown a dinner party for 100 guests or not, but it is, in my opinion, a lot of fun, but in hers, fun and a lot of work. So thank you so much for the work you do. And Loami, if you also raise your hand here, helping bring all of our guests in from far and wide. So thank you so much, you two. And of course, one last round of appreciation for our musicians, Ramsey Thornton and Isaac Stalling. Well, every year we try to bring different music, and I thought, once I heard Ramsey's banjo, of course, first thing I thought was, this is coming to this. If for some of you who've heard different pipa and different kinds of instruments in China, the banjo is rooted also in the gut. And connects us actually to China in this really dramatic and wonderful way. So it's a kind of gateway drug to Chinese folk music right through Ramsey and Isaac's work. So thank you. So let me talk a little for a moment about the word Chinese. This is, of course, in English, the Newman Prize for Chinese Literature. But Chinese actually is the English word that covers over many distinctions. So I want to talk a little bit about those distinctions tonight because it is vital to understanding the genesis of the prize and to understand its intervention in a number of important ways. So in Chinese, when we speak of Hanyu, which is a kind of the language of the Han people, it centers ethnicity, but it's a misnomer because the Han people speak hundreds of languages. So this notion of Mandarin being a kind of one language of the Han, right, it is a kind of an imaginary. In fact, there are hundreds. Then you have Zhongwen, or, this is the kind of Zhongguo, this is the center state. And so Zhongwen is the language of the center state. It centers the state. It centers the nation. Guoyu, even though it's nation language, is also centering an emergent property of China as it became a modern state and wrestled with what it means to transform oneself from a civilizational state, if you will, and an empire, in a pre-modern, very much outside the norms of modern nation states into one. So that actually centers history. And in some ways also draws distinctions from different regions that speak Chinese, like Taiwan, of course. And then we have Putonghua. Putonghua, the standard language. And the standard, of course, is Mandarin. And it's a prestige dialect of a particular language within this huge family of diversity. Okay. That is, if you look at the medallion that our winner will take away with him this evening, that is not what you will find. It will not say any of those characters, nor will it say Hakka, Fujian, or Fujianese, or Cantonese, all of these many languages within the Sino-linguistic family. Instead it says Huayu. Now, Huayu is a very interesting term, and it suggests an inclusivity, because it doesn't have the historical, centering that these others do, because Hua also suggests diaspora, suggests radical heterogeneity, but also inclusivity into a kind of family of languages. And so it is that language, those are the characters that were chosen against, as it were, norms. Right? So this is not normal that you would find those characters, but from the charter forward, this prize is about essentially simplifying, if you will, complexifying our idea of what Chinese literature is, but also by opening it to the radical heterogeneity of the Chinese literary world. And so I draw attention to that because, in my opinion and in many others, I believe this night is the fruition of that vision. Because tonight we celebrate a work of genius and of great literary merit, but also someone who has emerged out of that Chinese diaspora. And so I want to talk just briefly about his work as Huayu Wenxue, and that is the work of a Sinophone writer. And so this, I'm not going to talk too much because EK, if you'll raise your hand here, this, was the winning juror this time who nominated Guixin Zhang, but also Shomer here, sitting next, nominated him about 7 years earlier. And so both of them, EK will talk for a good 17 and a half minutes potentially to really give you a deep understanding of Mr. Zhang's work. So I'm not going to say too much, but I will say this, that his work is extraordinarily singular because his journey into language is a journey into interlanguage, to spaces between languages, the interstices. And when he writes Chinese, he does so from a very particular history and in a very particular way. Sentences can be pages long. You can have nouns and nouns and nouns piled on one another grammatically. Yufa, which is the law of language, does not apply to Mr. Zhang. He breaks the laws of language, and he liberates it, right? Liberating both language and human consciousness from the confines of the false notion that languages are fixed. They never have been, they never will be. Right? So even all of the 100 families of Chinese that I've spoken of are in constant change and conversation with one another. And so his work at a level of formal innovation is unprecedented, and luckily we have the great scholars of the world who brought that to the attention of our scholarly community. But of course he has very big fans as well, just because his books are amazing, not only in content, but as you will hear also, form, but also in content. I won't say too much about that because crocodiles come up later. So it is just a tremendous honor, and there's so many wonderful speakers that I want to go ahead and get out of the way. But it is really, the greatest day every 2 years that I get to be with all of you and share something as important as the voices that come from the part of the world. I tell my students, you can learn about China, but it's more important to build relationships. And you do so in literature, you do that with human beings. And you don't, your mother will tell you, you don't learn about your friends. That's weird. You have friends, you make friends, you keep friends, and it's hard work. And that is the human job. And if we forget it, we will pay for it. And so I am very, very happy to be introducing the Dean of International Studies, Scott Fritzen, who will then introduce our guest this evening. And thank you, Scott, of course, your always your support for this work. And also I want to draw attention to Dean Emeritus Paul Bell. Will you raise your hand here? Dean Bell was a founding, figure of great import for all of us, and of course RC and others. But I'll leave that to Dean Fritzen. So thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you all soon when we introduce the other prize of the evening, the English Jueju. So stay tuned to that.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Fritzen. I'm the Dean of the College of International Studies, also Associate Provost for Global Engagement for the University of Oklahoma. It's truly an honor, a pleasure to be here to welcome you to celebrate the amazing work of Kuei-hsing Zhang. And I'd like to begin, though, if you don't mind, by thanking Professor Jonathan Stalling for his leadership, which has been amazing over many of these years. Thank you, Jonathan. You are a true friend to Chinese literature, to Huayu literature. And I would also like to welcome all of you who are joining us via streaming, live streaming from the back. Hello, everybody. Please, everybody wave at our friends. And I would like to take a moment to recognize our not very local in-person guests this evening. And if you don't mind, many of them are my table mates. If you don't mind, if you could please stand when I call your name, and please hold your applause until after I have introduced everyone. Of course, beginning with this year's Newman Prize laureate, Kuei-hsing Zhang. I can't complain that you applaud for the first person. That is fully appropriate. Next, Professor E.K. Tan from Stony Brook University, the juror who successfully nominated Mr. Zhang in what was an extraordinarily competitive field. Also, Professor Shomer from UCLA, the juror who first nominated Kuei-hsing Zhang back in 2015. Joellen Newman-Shomer, whose parents' gift to OU made this prize and so much more possible. Thank you so much, Joellen. Patty Sherry, longtime Newman family friend. Please stand. Vanessa Chen, the Deputy Director of TECO in Houston, and thanks to her and her colleagues for supporting this year's Newman Prize festivities and making our streaming of this event in Taiwan possible. Thank you so much for that. Next, I would like to recognize our local in-person guests. And when I say your name, please also stand if you don't mind. And the first is Dean Denise Stevens, Dean of the OU Libraries, and her husband, Bill Edwards. Paul Bell, again, Dean Emeritus of the College of Arts and Sciences, and his wife, Terry Bell. R.C. Davis, Executive Director of World Literature Today, and his wife, Mary Kurtz. Nancy Yock, representative from the Mark Allen Everett Foundation and longtime supporter of literature and poetry at OU. And our very own Associate Dean of the College of International Studies, Professor Mitchell Smith. And now finally, if you are an OU faculty member, OU student, or OU alumni, please stand now and be recognized. That's a big group. Finally, a big thank you to Ramsey Gordon and Isaac Stalling. The last name is not a coincidence, by the way, in case you were wondering whether there is coincidentally a Stalling in the house. Thank you so much for providing music for this special occasion. Thank you. Finally, very brief, a few words about our college, the David L. Boren College of International Studies. It was founded with the goal of producing top-tier research on topics ranging from area studies to international relations, and to help broaden OU's international exchanges and partnerships all around the world, and with the goal of enhancing the global fluency of our graduates and the connectivity of our faculty and staff, to really act as a beacon for cross-cultural understanding. The Sinosphere has always been one of the core foci of the colleges, and we're very proud of the Institute for U.S.-China Issues, which leads the way in this regard. Of course, with the Newman Prizes for Chinese Literature and English Jueju, with Chinese Literature and Thought Today magazine, and the CLT book series, the Chinese Literature Translation Archive, past years of the U.S.-China Poetry Dialogue, and I could go on. With research programs which partner with OU's Chinese language program faculty, staff, and students, the Institute, the Center, leads the way in advocating for a deeper appreciation of living Chinese culture on the global stage. It's now with a tremendous honor, and it was with great pleasure we celebrate this momentous occasion. And I would like to now introduce my colleague, Professor Bo Kong, co-director of the Institute, who will say a bit more about the Institute, which hosts these Newman Prizes. Thank you very much, Professor Kong.
Good evening. My name is Bo Kong. I'm the co-director of the Institute for U.S.-China Issues and ConocoPhillips Petroleum Chair in Chinese Politics, Chinese and Asian Studies. It was 4 years ago that we celebrated something similar. It has always been a pleasure and joy for me to be part of the celebration of the Newman Prize laureates' achievements in Chinese literature, to hear the English Jueju poetry reading from the winners, and see my colleagues' work flourish. I have to say, after all those 4 years, it's really wonderful to be able to do this in person. Before I talk about the Institute, please allow me to echo our Dean and extend to everyone my cordial welcome to this evening's celebratory dinner, and thank Professor Stalling for his leadership in planning and organizing this year's Newman Prize events. Well, our mission tonight is to celebrate the Newman Prize in Chinese Literature and English Jueju Poetry Contest. Let me take a couple minutes just to brief you about the other things we do at the Institute. As co-director of the Institute of U.S.-China Issues, I chair a dialogue on the STEEP issues, i.e. issues related to technology, security, technology, economics, environment, public health, and politics in U.S.-China relations. The U.S.-China steep dialogue brings faculty, students, and scholars together to discuss the state of U.S.-China relations and uncover the deeper structure of bilateral relationship, its dynamics of security and insecurity, perception and misperception, identity and power. For instance, this spring we will host Dr. Nicholas Lardy, a well-known economist on China from the Peterson Institute for International Economics. He will talk about decoupling between China and the United States and assess whether it's a myth or a reality. And thanks to the technology these days, we are also able to host scholars from China. This spring, we will also host a leading scholar in international relations from Fudan University, Dr. Shinding Li, will give a talk about U.S.-China rivalry in the Asia-Pacific. In addition, the Institute also aims to foster research and support the next generation of scholars through the Newman Postdoc Fellowship Program and our research efforts. We will soon launch a search for a postdoc this spring, and hopefully we'll have someone in the fall to expand the research efforts in the Institute. Under the auspices of the Institute, I'm doing research on China's influence and also China in international order. And in addition to build synergy in the Department of International Area Studies, particularly between the faculty on China and the faculty on the Middle East, we will soon launch a China-Middle East research initiative to assess Chinese Middle Eastern engagement and its implications for the rest of the world, particularly for the United States. Finally, to boost our presence in the virtual space, I'm working on a new effort that will stream dialogues with leading experts on U.S.-China relations online, and I hope to be able to come back and tell you more about this effort, and this is something I'm working on. I hope to bring to fruition some of the efforts during the spring break. In the interest of time, I'll be very, very brief and without further ado, and I will stop here and turn the podium to our next speaker. And so as you enjoy and participate and celebrate the events, Professor Stalling leads on the cultural aspect. I just hope that you will pay attention to what we do on the other pillars. That's the concept of the Institute. That is, we try to promote the understanding of U.S.-China relations through different pillars, the cultural side and the steep side. And thank you so much. Enjoy the dinner and have a wonderful evening.
So next, it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce you all to the daughter of Harold J. and Ruth Newman, who I love to sign that to every email of mine. It really is an honor to hold their chair. I'll talk a little bit more about Harold, who passed away recently when I introduced the Newman Prize for English Jueju, which is a project that he really, much like the core of this, was instrumental in inspiring and supporting. But before I do that, please welcome his daughter, Joellen, and she's going to talk a little bit about her father and his vision and history at the university. So.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm humbled to be here on behalf of my parents. This award came about as a result of my father's love of the University of Oklahoma, where he was a student in the late 1940s, and his lifelong fascination and interest in China, and his continued belief that cultural exchange allows us to understand one another emotionally as opposed to just intellectually. Both my parents have taken great pride in the past recipients of this award and would continue to be awed by today's recipient, Wei-Xing Zhong. I want to thank the University of Oklahoma for their continued support of this award and the rightful recognition it bestows on some of our most brilliant literary minds today. And thank you to Jonathan Stalling for his brilliant stewardship of the Newman Prize, and the continuing level of excellence that Jonathan brings to this endeavor is unparalleled. Thank you for all being here today, and congratulations again to Wei-Xing Zheng.
Joellen, you are such a wonderful mixture of your two parents. But if you saw the kind of twinkle in the eye, you'll see it soon when we see some pictures of Harold and how he would speak here. So hold on for that. So it's now my pleasure to introduce you to this year's winners as well as last. So we have 2 years of winners to celebrate tonight since we weren't in person last year. And that is for the English Jueju Prize. Now, Jueju is not an easy feat to explain. It was the highest level of the diagnostic for the imperial exam. There are many layers of rules. There are 7 rigorous constraints that make it very, very difficult, but also incredibly powerful. I just encourage you to read about some of those rules, which I have enumerated for you in the in your brochure of this year's winners. I've asked all of the winners to produce a video, and so as you'll see, the English Jueju Prize was originally just given to Oklahoma students. I'm very happy to say that partnering with Oklahoma Art Institute will be giving a 2-week Jueju workshop to 600 high school students from around the state. But for this evening, we will be celebrating 1 Oklahoma winner and 2 who have honorable mentions. Well, 3, because 1, as you'll see, was a collaboration. So I will go ahead and let this poetry reading, this Lan Song Hui, begin, because we have quite a lot of ground to cover as we circle the world and back with people who are learning to write Jueju, the heart, really, of classical Chinese poetry, following all of the rules. And if you don't believe it, for all of those of you who know Pingze and Weizhang and Duilian and all these rules that are so difficult, they have done them all. And so the white and black code here tells you which vowel is ping, is white, which vowels are zi, are black. And, that's just one of 7 forms of constraints. So if you want to learn more, again, read all about it. And we'll go ahead and let the poets speak for themselves.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Gibson, and this is my poetry submission for the 2022 Newman Prize for English Jueju. Globe warms, peaks melt, fresh streams gone. Earth heats, coal burns, thirst halts spawn. Bleak hope, change can cure this blight. Grim breeze, preach peace, mount new dawn. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Silas Pelican, and I'll be reciting my Jueju Dusk Ridge. Capped peaks, young pines, soft drifts blow, light moss, stark earth, scant ferns grow. Sun fades, glance up, warm red light, frost bites, cling to, last faint glow.
Varanga, I attended John Paul II High School in Plano, Texas, and now I'm a rising freshman at Harvard College, and I'll be reading my Jueju poem today. Raw night, dim clouds, cold mist flow, pale moon, snowdrifts, sweet winds blow. New day, green grass, so home rests. Strong roots, gold sun, time slips slow.
Hello, my name is Ariella Harrell and I'm 11 years old and I attend St Paul's Girls. Here is my Jueju poem titled Exotic Beach. Air sweeps, sea flows, blue sharks twirl. Wind glides, shores meet, dense leaves whirl. Young men, lost hearts, clear waves froth. Rocks form, stars glow, bright boats swirl.
Hi, I'm Hui-Young Chung from St Paul's Girls' School in London, and this is my Start English Jueju. Steep cliff, white chalk, green plants grow, soft wind, blown seeds, fly down low. Where will time go when it's past? Clouds drift, foam floats, seas won't know. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jianling Shen, and I am the Mandarin teacher at Sinophone School in the United Kingdom. I was very happy to participate together with my students in this year's Newman Prize English Jueju competition. My poem drew inspiration from the long, unique history and also the connections between our school and also the St. Albans Cathedral, which you can see behind me. In fact, our school is one of the oldest schools in the world. I'm very honored to have the opportunity to share my poem with you today, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Slight flint, fresh spire, choir apse sings. Grand nave, aged bricks, church bell rings. Warm hands, old hearts, all creeds greet. Cold months, new year, much hope brings.
I'm Jeanette Tianhui Law, and my Jueju is called For Those Who Flee. Swift horse, flee horde, swords wax war. Winged ride, comb cliffs, fate's moon door. Strange walls, shred nest, home ways weep. Dawn mist, jade swells, ships reach shore.
Hello, my name is Maria. I'm from the old and beautiful city of Smolensk. I'm extremely happy to be a part of this wonderful competition. Let me present my Jueju, which I wrote thinking about shining beauty of the Smolensk Lakes National Park and about human life itself. Rich life, green shine, fresh silk leaves, blue sky, bright lake, branch, wild weeds, small trail, dark grass, roam your path, reach spot, to stand, pleasant, last ease. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.
Hi, friends from all over the world. My name is Tanjin Chong, and I'm from China, and you might call me Sophia. The title of this poem is The Urn of Life, which is dedicated to everyone who has undergone unspeakable pain and bewilderment in the quest for the meaning of life. The Urn of Life. Cosmos, jade sea, crest, built, sails, wind seas, white peaks, crest-lined tails, death knell, flash fades, throws, quail, quests, dark sprouts, new dawn, life left trails.
High peaks, low clouds, snow drifts round. Boughs creak, wings flit, half-heard sound. Feet slip, hands part, dusk fades fast. Spring blooms, day breaks, small bones found.
Hello, my name is Ji Siwen. I come from Nanjing, China. This is my poem. Sunburns, dry leaves, hot air boils, wind blows, bleak rain, warm sea spoils. When will we know what we lost? Where can we plow next towards soils? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tan Rufang from Beijing Normal University, China, and I've written an untitled irregular English review as follows. Mountain stands, stream flows, sky spins round. Breeze sings, gems bounce, bloom wears round. Love shed, tears dry, sleep way far. Dove brings your voice when dreams sound. That's my English Jueju, and I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you.
From Dartford Grammar School in the UK, and my name is Shomer. Blessings galore, swift stream, clear sight, bright sun, smile, teal lakes, vast air, shade, hope, house, large fields, young growth, love, clothes, bare, wind shifts, boys stroll, spring, blessed, months.
Hello, my name is Ananya Subramanian, and my Jueju is called Peaceful Stream. Wet grass, crisp stream, cold gust blows, moist air, fresh brook, ice lake slows, dry stones, dim mist, warm tears drop, loud laughs, pains gone, soft brook flows. Thank you for listening to my Jueju. Bye!
gold dew, damp grass, white clouds play, plump drops, frail bulbs, bright light ray, blank thought, warm room, bored face waits, dry hands, cold roof, at home stay.
Hello, my name is Taran and I'm going to be reading my Jueju poem. Vast night, bare ground, black seas, tow, still air, cracked earth, harsh gales blow, lone trail, bent back, slow long steps, lead us through where oak trees grow.
My name is Sasha Ehrenberg. I am 16 years old at St. Paul's Girls' School, and I will be reading my Jueju poem, New Joy. Tough sprout, coarse sun, gaunt brook flows, spry seeds, dry earth, stout stem grows, calm thrum, soft flesh, dour aches cease, blurred sight, new joy, on life goes.
Thick peels hide pit of true core. Each husk holds seed to build more. So too our souls, they're deep in. Mere flesh cloaks spark, but deeds soar.
Hello, my name is Marina Crouch, and I am a student at the University of Missouri, and my original English Jueju is called Best Friends Know Before You Do. Black night, car hums, cool winds blow. Low moon, soft song, red cheeks glow. 2 hands, 1 name, I like him. Bright eyes, soft laugh, oh, I know.
Warm bridge, smooth rock, cold stream flows. Soft moss, light hum, free fish goes. Drunk feet, wet hem, wry swift thoughts. Cool calm, dark dusk, new wind blows.
Anticipation by Maddie and Abe Hunt. Still pond, tall tree, big old rock. Spring comes, spring goes on the clock. Earth soft, thoughts come, mind is still. Eyes watch, life grows on the dock.
Hi, my name is Bradley Kui, and this is my original Jueju. Bright start, new sun, faint dark dawn, calm mind, soft light, thoughts now spawn. Raise head, deep breath, freeze aged heart, look up to see, hope's not gone. Thanks.
So if you can imagine sorting through hundreds of entries, it is one of the most difficult and rewarding week or two of the year for me. And if you thought it ran a little long, you try to shorten that, right? So I've been working on this since 1996, building the system so that we can create, as it were, not just Sino-Vietnamese, Sino-Korean, but also Sino-English. And for all intents and purposes, this is, in fact, one of the Sino languages. English is uniquely suited to be in this family, and it is just a quirk of history that we're able to do that and share. This deep knowledge is one of the great entry points to the Sinosphere, to be able to hear that pattern of Pingzi ticking through. It's true in all of the languages. And English is very similar to, not to Mandarin, which is very hard to do this in, but in other dialects where you have very similar structure, it's just, I hope you can all welcome English into the Sino family as we move forward with our evening. So thank you all for participating, but now we are to award some money. Every winner gets $500, right? Yeah, that's a lot of money. And also a certificate signed by the president of this renowned university as well. And I'll grab the first one now. So the last reading was none other than Bradley Kui. And so Bradley, if you'll come up here and accept your award. Wait, stay here. Wait, stay. You must stay. Photos. And the winner of the money, you'll get it next time, we have Jackie Gibson. So Abe and Maddie. All right, so if the four of you will gather here. All right, and so now we turn to this evening's main event, of course, and I'd like to introduce my colleague and friend, and we entered the profession in pretty much the same year, and I followed his career, and I'm really was excited to have him as a part of the jury, and of course really excited to see that he was such a tough guy and could bully everyone in the jury process. No, he inspired everyone, and so I think you'll see why. So he said, "How long do I have?" And I said, "You're the boss." And I said, "Well, you're the deputy boss. Of course, Mr. Zhang's the boss tonight." But anyway, so he'll have the floor. So please welcome Ike Tang from Stony Brook.
Thank you, Jonathan, Professor Starling, and thank you, Professor Kong, and Dean Fritzen, and the Newman family, Joe Allen, for having me here today. I'm going to give Jonathan back 4.5 minutes because I think I only need like 13 minutes. So I brought my technology. I brought my own teleprompter. It is my honor to introduce Taiwan-based Sinophone Malaysian writer Chang Kuei-hsing, the 2023 Newman Prize laureate for Sinophone literature. My nomination of Chang Kuei-hsing for this award was based on the following agenda. First, to diversify the Newman Prize for Sinophone literature by including a nominee who writes about the experience of a unique and distinct overseas Chinese community, one that negotiates continuously its heritage, culture, and language with that of the home country. Second, to rethink the taxonomical scope of Sinophone literature and the extent of its inclusivity. Third, to explore and examine Chinese diasporic writing as a potential form of global and world Sinophone literature. Born in 1956 in Sarawak, Borneo, Sinophone Malaysian writer Chang Kuei-hsing is a product of the cultural, ethnic, and political struggles of the Sinophone community in Malaysia. He left Malaysia in 1976 for Taiwan to attend the National Taiwan Normal University. Zhang, an English literature major, started writing short stories during his college days. Since 1978, his short stories have been recognized by China Post Literary Award, and in 1980, he published his first short story collection entitled The Dormant Tiger, Fu Hu, and he said it's not Crouching Tiger, it's The Dormant Tiger. With this collection, Zhang soon achieved equal status as pioneer Malaysian writers such as Shang Wanyun and Li Yongping, making him one of the young and rising authors in Taiwan at the time. Upon graduating from college, Zhang put his literary career on hold for almost 6 years to focus on his career as an English teacher in a Taiwanese high school. He returned to the literary scene in 1987 with Traveling In and Out of the Inner City, a short story collected in Ya Publishing House 1987 collection of short stories. The following year, he won the 1988 China Post Best Novella Award for Ke-shan's Children. The novella was later published in his second collection under the same title, Ke-shan's Children. Zhang is no stranger to awards and recognition. His first novel, Elephant Herd, Qunxiang, published in 1998, was shortlisted for the second Time Literary Million Novel Award. It also won the Times Reader's Choice Award and Top 10 Books Award for Creative Writing, and the United Daily Reader's Best Literature Award. Because we have audience from virtually watching this, I'm going to read those awards in Chinese, or in Mandarin, right? 第二届时报文学百万小说奖、时报读者票选奖、中国时报开卷好书10大好书中文创作类奖、联合报读书人最佳好书奖。His second novel, Monkey Cup, Hubei, published in 2000, garnered the 24th Times Literary Recommended Book Award, China Times Top 10 Books Award for Creative Writing, United Daily Reader's Best Literature Award, and Central Daily Top 10 Book Award for Creative Writing. 第24届时报文学推荐奖、中国时报开卷好书10大好书中文创作类奖、联合报读书人最佳好书奖、中央日报出版与阅读10大好书中文创作类奖。Wow, aren't you tired of winning? In 2018, Zhang published his fourth novel, Boars Crossing the River, 野猪渡河, a novel he took almost 2 decades to write. This novel has been extremely well received, winning Zhang the 8th Dream of the Red Chamber Award, Malaysia Flower Trail Literary Award, Taiwan Literary Golden Canon Award, Taipei International Book Expo Grand Prize, and the United Daily Grand Prize for Literature. 第8届红楼梦奖、马来西亚花中文学奖、台湾文学经典奖、台北国际书展大奖、联合报文学大奖。While we are still recovering from reading the horrors of the Japanese occupation of Sarawak during World War II in Boars Crossing the River, Zhang is ready to take us on another journey into the mystic Sarawak rainforest in his most recent work, Crocodile Eyelids of Morning. 二眼晨曦, a novel he just published in January this year. Chang Kuei-hsing is best known for his rainforest trilogy, 雨林三部曲, which includes Elephant Herd, Monkey Cup, and My Subsea Sleeping Beauty, 我思念中长眠的南国公主. Though not sequel to each other, the trilogy is connected by the theme of the rainforest and the communist history in Malaysia. All 3 novels involve the theme of both a physical and spiritual return to the tropical rainforest as a necessary journey traversing several generations to uncover a family secret of the Sinophone Malaysian main character. Through the journey of the character in each novel, localized aspects of Sinophone Malaysian identity and experience are depicted and inscribed as a reaction to circumscribed and ethnic history and identification representative of the Sinophone community in Borneo. Zhang attended English stream schools in Malaysia and underwent the standard Cambridge O-level and A-level exam. His early literary influences were British and American literature such as the works of William Shakespeare, E.M. Forster, and William Faulkner. His introduction to Chinese literature in school were limited to works by Mayforth writers such as Lu Xun and Cao Yu, and an abridged version of Dream of Red Chambers, 红楼梦. Attending college in Taiwan expanded his scope of understanding of Chinese literature while continuing to pursue his love for English literature. The uniqueness of Zhang's writing lies in its fusion of literary aesthetics and narrative styles from the East and the West. His portrayal of the plantations in Borneo reads like a transplant of Faulkner's American South to the Indonesia archipelago. And his stream of consciousness style narrative, traversing between the character's psychic and the tropical rainforest terrain, injects Sinophone literature with a unique sensorial experience similar to that of Gabriel Garcia Marquez's magical realism. In a sense, it is not at all far-fetched to claim that Zhang's writing can be read as a unique branch of Sinophone literature as world literature. Taiwan scholars Mei Jialing convincingly argued that Zhang's mastery of the Sinitic language and script, on the one hand, is a nod to a classical Chinese civilization, while on the other, harbors a strong savage inclination that inevitably weakens the work's homeland consciousness. To ground her argument, she summarizes some of the more prominent discussions of Zhang's work by Sinophone Malaysian literary scholars. I'm quoting Mei here. The critique Kim Tong, Zhang Jingzhong has discussed Zhang's entry into a fortress of language as what he does in his writing. Li Youcheng has observed that Elephant Herd, his first novel, is a cultural history that is critically collecting memory as he writes. And Ng Kim Chiu, Huang Jingshu has employed a concept of linguistic exile to analyze his work using the mutual germination of Sinitic characters, the Chinese character zi and form, xiang, to reflect on the work's fluctuating relationship to a notion of Chineseness. Scholars in North America, such as Andre Buckner, Brian Bernard, Yuting Huang, David Dewey Wang, Carlos Rojas, one of our guests, he had to leave early today, so he wasn't here with us today. And also the Professor Xu Meishi, whom we just met earlier, and myself have all examined Zhang's work in our respective research. Wang suggested that Zhang's rainforest is a manifestation of linguistic and narrative heteroglossia. This is exemplified in the double entendre of rainforest, Yuling, versus wood forest, Yuling. They have the same sound, same pronunciation, but one means rainforest, the other means wood forest. You can see that the interesting connection there. Buckner and I discussed Zhang's use of meta-narrative and the Chinese script as mediation for history rewriting in Sinophone Malaysian literature. Bernard's focus on the framework of eco-criticism to explore Zhang's use of plantation and rainforest as literary tropes to depict inter-ethnic relations and Chinese settler history. Huang describes Zhang's experimentation with Sinitic script and language as the product of the Sinophone community's settler anxiety within an ecosystem of the indigenous communities in Borneo. This wide range of scholarship on Zhang's writing evidence its richness and complexity. So for readers who do not know the Sinitic script, you'll soon have a chance to read the translation of Zhang's first novel, Elephant Herd. The novel is translated by our colleague Carlos Rojas, Professor Rojas from Duke University, who was here earlier yesterday and today, and soon to be published by Columbia University Press. So I hope my introduction of Chang Kuei-hsing and his work has offered you a sense of the richness of his writing. I also hope that it would entice you in wanting to read his work to learn about a lesser known Sinophone world in Southeast Asia. Thank you.
You should come back up for those other 4 minutes. Come on, no. All right, well, now is the big moment. So, Joellen, will you join me up here for the conferring of the prize to Mr. Zhang?
insist that he stand by me. Okay? You stand here. Stand here.
He's the boss, I told you. Deputy boss. Boss.
Yeah, I plan to give my second speech bilingually, but I think it will be more comfortable if Jonathan will help me with his translation. So I'm glad that you are here. Okay, now I'm going to speak Chinese. 这是我第二次到美国，上一次是去波士顿，那时候是4月，波士顿机场飘着细雪，火冷。想起波士顿，我就想起2样东西，一个是查尔斯河上面的野雁，一个是鳄鱼。因为哈佛大学东亚语言和文明系的王德威先生请我吃了一盘鳄鱼肉。说也奇怪，我在婆罗洲这个鳄鱼横行水域的岛屿上住了20年，吃过很多种野兽的肉，蛇肉、猴子肉、蜥蜴肉，还有狗肉，不好意思哈，就是没有吃过鳄鱼肉。没有想到到了美国，却让我尝到了鳄鱼的滋味。Your turn now.
So this is just my second trip to the United States. The last time I was here, I stayed in Boston. While it was already April, it was still quite cold when I arrived, and there was a fine snow covering Boston Airport. When I think of Boston, I think of two things: geese on the Charles River and alligators. This is because Mr. Zhiwei Wang, a professor in the Department of East Asian Languages and Civilizations at Harvard University, had invited me to dinner, and he ordered a plate of crocodile meat. It's strange to say this, but I've lived in Borneo, an island filled with crocodile-infested waters, for 2 decades of my life, and never, I'd eaten snake meat, monkey meat, lizard meat, and with an addition, with apologies, dog meat, but never have I eaten crocodile meat. Never knew what crocodile meat tasted like until I had arrived in Boston.
Thank you. 我出生在东南亚一个热带岛屿，这个岛叫做婆罗洲，它是世界第3大岛，世界第2大雨林，全球每一年有1半的热带的木材产自婆罗洲。这个大岛有3个国家：印尼、马来西亚和汶莱。种族非常的复杂，有马来人、印尼人、印度人、原住民、华人和白人。
I was born on a tropical island in Southeast Asia. The island is called Borneo. It is the 3rd largest island in the world and is home to the world's 2nd largest rainforest. Half of the tropical timber in the world is produced in Borneo every year. There are 3 countries in this big island: Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei. The racial makeup of the island is also very complex and includes Malays and Indonesians, and Indians, and the island's indigenous peoples, as well as Chinese and even white folks.
Okay, thank you. 我居住的地方在北婆罗洲，一个叫做沙拉越的地方，人口大约是280万，它是马来西亚13个州之一。那么它是一个人烟稀少、野生动物泛滥的地方，有时候我一天看到的猴子比人还多。1841年之前，沙拉越是文莱帝国的属地。1841到1941，它被布洛克王朝统治，也可以说是英国的保护国。1941到1945年，它被日本人占领。2战之后成为英国的殖民地。1963年，和马来亚、新加坡、沙巴、 组成马来西亚。1965年，新加坡退出马来西亚独立之后，马来西亚剩下目前的13个州。为什么会成立马来西亚这个国家？新加坡为什么退出马来西亚？其中的原因非常的复杂。我简单的讲一下新加坡退出马来西亚的原因。1963年，新加坡加入了马来西亚之后，新加坡的领导人李光耀喊出了马来西亚人的马来西亚的政治主张和口号。那这是什么意思呢？他的意思是说，在马来西亚，不管你是马来人、华人、印度人、原住民，甚至是白人，只要你是马来西亚的公民，你就有权利和资格成为这个国家的领导人。但是人口占了优势，而且主导马来西亚局势和政权的马来人，他们喊出了马来人的马来西亚。这个意思是说，在马来西亚只有马来人可以领导这个国家。李光耀是一个雄才大略的政治家，他在英国读书的时候，他就说过，等我回到新加坡，我要把英国人赶出新加坡。他也的确做到了。你们的美国的前总统尼克森曾经说过，李光耀是困在笼子里的老虎，猛虎出匣，势必翻山倒海。李光耀喊出了这样的政治主张。sorry， 等一下，那1960年代的马来西亚，包括新加坡在内的华人的人口，并没有比马来人少太多。李光耀喊出的这样的政治主张，在马来人看来，简直就是造反。1965年，马来西亚把新加坡逐出了马来西亚，新加坡独立了。通常一个国家独立应该是欢天喜地的，但是李光耀是含泪退出马来西亚，因为他的大国的美梦从此就破碎了。他始终被困在一个小笼子里。那么这个小笼子也反映了马来西亚大部分华人的处境和命运。
I live in North Borneo, a place called Sarawak, with a population of about 2.8 million. It is one of 13 states in Malaysia. It's a sparsely populated place with a lot of wildlife. Sometimes I see more monkeys than people on a given day. But in 1841, it was a colonized territory within the Brunei Empire. From 1841 to 1941, it was ruled by the Brooke dynasty, which can also be said to be a British protectorate. It was occupied by the Japanese from 1941 to 45 and became a British colony after World War II. Malaya, Singapore, and Sabah formed the nation of Malaysia. And so after Singapore withdrew from Malaysia after its independence in 1965, Malaysia was left with its current 13 states. Why Malaysia was established as a country and why Singapore withdrew from Malaysia have a very complicated set of reasons. I would like to talk briefly about the reasons why Singapore broke away from Malaysia. After Singapore joined Malaysia in 1963, the leader of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, chanted the political proposition and slogan, Malaysians, Malaysia. It was done, what does this mean? In other words, in Malaysia, it doesn't matter if you're a Malaysian, a Malay, that is, Chinese, Indian, indigenous person, or even white. As long as you are a Malaysian citizen, you would have had the right to lead the country. However, the Malays, who constitute the majority of the population, are the main political power in Malaysia, and called for Malay Malaysia, which is to say that the majority envisioned a Malaysia where only Malays could lead the country. Lee Kuan Yew was a talented politician. However, and when he was studying in the UK, he is said to have vowed that when I return to Singapore, I will drive the British out of Singapore. And this is just what he did. Your ex-president, Nixon, once said that Lee Kuan Yew was a tiger trapped in a cage. And when a tiger came out of his nest, he was bound to overturn mountains and seas. In Malaysia in the 1960s, the Chinese population, including those in Singapore, was not that much smaller than Malay. However, in the eyes of the Malay majority, Lee Kuan Yew's political proposition was tantamount to a rebellion. In 1965, Malaysia expelled Singapore from Malaysia, and Singapore became an independent state that we see today. Usually, a country should be happy when it becomes independent, but Lee Kuan Yew left Malaysia with tears in his eyes because his dream of remaining a big country was shattered. And so he would always remain trapped in a small cage. And we can say that this is the same cage that reflects the situation and fate of most Chinese in Malaysia.
我说出这一段历史，主要是让大家知道，马来西亚是一个马来人的国家，一切都以马来人为优先。在美国，在贵国，黑人可以成为美国总统，甚至华人、亚裔和拉丁裔也可能成为总统，但是在马来西亚是天方夜谭。
I narrate this period of history mainly to let everyone know that Malaysia is a country ruled by Malays, and as such, Malays take priority. In the United States, African-American men become president, as could a person with Chinese, Asian, Latino heritage, but this is just a fantasy in Malaysia.
我在1956年出生在沙劳越北部一个生产石油的小镇，当时的沙劳越还是英国的殖民地。1963年我开始念小学的时候，沙劳越刚好加入了马来西亚，成为马来西亚的一个州。当时沙劳越人口大约只有100万，华人大约是30万。那华人移居东南亚最早可以追溯到汉朝。第二次鸦片战争之后，清朝的国门大开，华人开始较大规模的迁徙到海外。我的祖父辈就在1920年代从广东移民到婆罗洲，从此落地生根。我是在婆罗洲出生的第3代。
I was born in 1956 in an oil-producing town in northern Sarawak, when Sarawak was still a British colony. When I started primary school in 1963, Sarawak had just joined Malaysia and become a state within it. At that time, the population of Sarawak was about 1 million people, and there were 300,000 Chinese people living there. Chinese immigration to Southeast Asia can be traced back to the Han Dynasty at its earliest. After the Second World War, however, the Qing Dynasty opened its doors and Chinese began to migrate overseas on a much larger scale. My grandparents immigrated from Canton, Guangdong, to Borneo in the 1920s and put down their roots there. I am now the 3rd generation of my family born in Borneo.
我开始念小学的时候，虽然沙劳越已经脱离了英国的统治，但是它沿用的依旧是殖民时期的教育制度。因为当地华人的努力和坚持，马来西亚有一套相当完整的华语基础教育。我小学念的是华校，除了一门英文课，其他科目都是以华语授课。到了中学，因为当地的独立中学，所谓的独立中学，除了英文课，其他科目都是以华语授课，但是不接受政府的经费的补贴。那么这2所独立中学因为离我的家太远，我不得不进入英校就读。所谓英校，除了每周5节的华文课，其他科目都是以英语授课。当时沙劳越虽然独立了，但是教育制度依旧不完整。我中学考的是英国的剑桥文凭，考卷是寄回给英国人批改的，包括华文考卷。 而且要考取优秀的成绩，英文非常的重要，华文就变得可有可无。虽然可有可无，但是有心学习的话还是没有问题的。虽然我念的是英校，每周5节的华文课，从中国古典诗词、章回小说到五四时期的新文学，琳琅满目，内容丰富。
When I started primary school, although Sarawak was no longer ruled by Britain, the education system was still very much shaped in the mold of the earlier colonial period. Because of the hard work and persistence of local Chinese, Malaysia's education has a fairly complete foundation in Chinese instruction. My elementary school was a Chinese language school, and so while we had one class in English, all other subjects were taught in Chinese. There was an independent high school, where again all but one subject was taught in Chinese, but the school did not receive government subsidies and was too far away from my home. So I had to go to an English language school. In my English language school, we had 5 Chinese lessons a week, while all the other subjects were taught in English. Although Sarawak was independent at this time, the education system was still incomplete. My secondary school exams were based on the British Cambridge diploma system. So the tests were sent back to the UK for British educators to grade, and this even included the Chinese exams. To get excellent grades both in Chinese and English was important. There's no problem studying hard even when it's not important. Although I was studying in an English school, the 5 Chinese classes every week did manage to cover everything from classical Chinese poetry and chapter novels to modern literature from the May 4th period.
此外，还有一个非常特别的地方，当时砂劳越华人人口虽然只有30万，但是华文报章的销路非常好，最多的时候曾经有7架的华文报章。那么这些华文报章几乎每天提供一个没有稿费的副刊，发表当地文艺青年的创作，而且需求量很大。那么我从初中开始就开始向这一些文艺副刊投稿，发表了很多不成熟的很优质的习作，一直到1976年我到台湾升学，始终维持着以华语书写的习惯。如果不是当地华人的坚持，小学的华语基础教育，中学时期每周5节的华文课，报章上大量发表习作的空间，我大概不会以华文创作，甚至是一个连华语都不太会讲的华人。我之所以提起这一段过程，这是提醒大家，我虽然生长在异国，因为祖父母的固执和某种尊严，我始终在一个典型的华人社会中长大，接受过不是很正统的华语教育，也一直以华语书写为荣。
In addition to these schools, however, there's another really important part of my education. At that time, although the Chinese population of Sarawak was only about 300,000, the sale of Chinese newspapers remained quite brisk. At its peak, there were 7 different Chinese language newspapers. These papers provided a free daily literary supplement, which would publish work by local young writers, and the demand was quite high. I myself contributed to these literary supplements from junior high and published many early, immature, and naive works of juvenilia. In 1976, I went to Taiwan to study, and I maintained the habit of writing literary works in Chinese. If it weren't for the persistence of the local Chinese, combined with my basic Chinese education in primary school, and with the 5 Chinese lessons each week from high school, and the space for publishing my early work in these newspapers, I probably wouldn't be able to write literary works in Chinese or even speak Chinese well. The reason why I mention this process is just to remind everyone that although I grew up in a foreign country, because of the stubbornness and dignity of my grandparents, I still grew up in a typical Chinese society and was proud to write in Chinese.
我从1976来到台湾之后， 1982成为台湾的公民，早已经是道道地地的台湾人。不过台湾人始终认为我是马来西亚人，而马来西亚人又似乎把我当作台湾人。1990年，我回到婆罗洲探亲的时候，我发觉当地的小贩把我当作日本人，用日本话和我打招呼。到了2002年的时候，我在当地的一个地方等公车的时候，和那个很年轻的马来人聊天。这位马来人问我，用英文问我，我们是用英文聊天的。Are you Korean？ 我说 No, I'm from Taiwan。 他说 Oh, made in Taiwan。 到了2010年，当我再次回到婆罗洲的时候，当地人却把我当作大陆的中国人。随着日本、韩国和中国的经济的起飞，我总是被误认成不同国籍的人。当然我一直不以为意，甚至觉得这是蛮好玩的一件事情。
After I came to Taiwan in 1976, I went on to become Taiwanese citizen in 1982. So I've long been out-and-out Taiwanese. However, Taiwanese always think that I'm Malaysian. Malaysians seem to regard me as Taiwanese. In the 1990s, when I went back to Borneo to visit my family, I found that the local street vendors greeted me in Japanese as if I were from Japan. And in 2002, I chatted with a young Malay while waiting for a local bus. The Malay man asked me, "Are you Korean?" And I said, "No, I'm from Taiwan." I feel like I've heard this. The Malay then said, "Oh, made in Taiwan." In 2010, when I came back to Borneo again, the locals regarded me as a mainland Chinese person. As the economies of Japan and Korea and China took off, I was constantly being mistaken for people of different nationalities. I mostly didn't care about this much, and in time, I grew to find it pretty funny.
Okay. You have to read with more feeling, more emotion.
Here's the box.
刚才提到我从初中开始投稿，也一直以华语创作为荣。但是诡异的是，真正让我出世文学的殿堂，而且开始比较认真创作的，却是西方。我念高中的时候，学校为了应付剑桥文凭的考试，透过各种方式加强我们的英文，其中就是在高一的时候开了一门英国文学课，让我们在老师的领导之下阅读英国作家的作品，那包括了爱德华·摩根、弗洛斯特的《窗外有蓝天》、印度之旅、威尔·戈尔丁的《苍蝇王》、莎士比亚的《马克白》3本小说和一个剧本。当然我到现在还是不太明白学校为什么让我们读莎士比亚。那对一个英文基础不是很好的人，莎士比亚看多了，英文可能会越来越退步。但是后来我才知道，那是剑桥文凭指定的课外的读物。在同一个时候，有一组英国的剧团在婆罗洲巡回表演莎士比亚的舞台剧。在我们那个动物比人还要多的地方表演的是亨利五世 Henry V。 我为了看表演，就囫囵吞枣的看了亨利4世和亨利5世。那么透过这一批作品，包括前面的小说，也让我开始接触到了外国的文学，尤其是莎士比亚他的一些重要的作品，我大概看了6到7遍。那接触到了外国文学之后，进一步的拓展了我的文学的视野，让我追随一些前辈到台湾升学，也延续了我的创作的生涯。 如果我一辈子留在婆罗洲的话，我可能早已经放弃了文学创作。我20岁离开婆罗洲，今年66岁，生命中超过了2/3是在台湾度过。虽然我的小说背景大部分在南洋，但是我今天能够持续的创作，要感谢台湾的环境和支持。我曾经说过，如果我死了，我愿意把我的心留在台湾，把我的拙躯我这个身体回归婆罗洲就像肖邦那个波兰的音乐家一样，心留祖国。当然只是一个隐喻不表示说我真的把心脏挖出来留在台湾，把身体运回婆罗洲。Okay. No feeling.
We're working on it. Okay. Shakespeare. Okay, let's see. When I started primary school, although Sarawak was no longer ruled by British, the education system was still very much... Gosh, wait a second. I just flipped my page, sorry. There we are. I'm mucking it up. Okay, there we go. Yeah. I just mentioned that I have been writing in Chinese since I was in junior high school, but the strange thing is that it was the Western literature that first introduced it to me, that is literature, and it stimulated more serious writing. When I was in high school, in order to prepare for the Cambridge diploma exam, the school used various methods to strengthen our English. Among them was teaching English literature. In the first year of high school, which required us to read the works of British writers, under the guidance of a teacher, including Ian Foster, Room with a View, Journey to India, William Golding's Lord of the Flies, and Shakespeare's Macbeth, among other novels and plays. I still don't understand why the school let us read Shakespeare. For a person whose English foundation is not very good, if he reads too much Shakespeare, I'm afraid his English will only deteriorate further and further. I later learned that it was an extracurricular reading in the Cambridge diploma. At the time, a group of British theatre troupes were performing Shakespeare's stage play in Borneo, Henry V. It was performed in a place where there were more animals than there were people. I watched Henry IV, wholeheartedly just to take in the performance. It was through these works that I also came into contact with foreign literature, especially Shakespeare. I read some of his important works about 6 or 7 times. After encountering foreign literature, my literary vision was further expanded, allowing me to follow some predecessors in Taiwan for further study, and thus continued my creative career. If I had stayed in Borneo for the rest of my life, I might have given up writing literature long ago. I left Borneo when I was 20 years old, and I'm now 66. I've spent more than 2/3 of my life in Taiwan. Although most of my novels are based in Nanyang, I can continue to create today, thanks to the environment and support of Taiwan. I once said that if I die, I'd like to leave my heart in Taiwan. Let my body be returned to Borneo. Just like Chopin, I would like to keep my heart in the motherland. But this is just a metaphor. I like that clarification. Just a metaphor.
Much better. Okay. 台湾很小，在一些人的眼里，它甚至不是一个国家。那么这块土地在台湾，它有很多很杰出的人才，因为台湾的小，他们的成就也被缩小了。我希望除了纽曼华语文学奖，能够有更多的国外的文学奖，把注意力放在台湾。
Taiwan is very small, and in some people's eyes, she's not even viewed as a country. There are so many outstanding talents in this land. And because Taiwan's so small, it's not been recognized or given enough recognition. So I hope that in addition to the Newman Prize for Chinese literature, there will be more foreign literary awards and prizes that will recognize Taiwanese writers.
剩下一小段。我在台湾和海外虽然得过了一些文学奖，但是纽曼华语文学奖对我来说意义非凡，原因就在华语这2个字。 纽曼文学奖的评审委员，他们阅读的不是二手的翻译，而是原汁原味的中文、华文。虽然我的英文没有各位的功力今天这个场合我们也可以用英文发表感言，但是一想到华语书写对我的意义，我还是说华语好了，把英文交给 Jonathan。在这里我要特别感谢我居住了46年的台湾，也要特别感谢非常专业和令人尊敬的纽曼评审委员，当然还有发起纽曼文学奖的纽曼家族，那是我不一一的点名，感谢各位。
Although I have won some literary awards in Taiwan and overseas, the Newman Prize for Chinese Literature means a lot to me because of this word Chinese. The judges of the Newman Literary Prize read not second-hand translations, but my original Chinese works. Although my English is not as good as mine,
yes.
I can still express my reflections in English on this occasion. But when I think of the meaning of writing in Chinese, to me, I still want to speak Chinese. And here, I would like to thank Taiwan, where I have lived for 46 years, and thank the professional and highly respected Newman Prize jurors, and of course, the Newman family, whose endowment made this prize for Chinese literature possible in the first place. I cannot name everyone here, of course, but thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well done.
And thank all of you for being here this night and sharing this moment with all of us. And I hope you go forth and read literature, read books, lots and lots of them. And we'll see you next time, 2 years from now, for the next Newman Prize for Chinese Literature. Thank you so much.
Thank you.